Politics, above the nation's pride.
The Right Stand, weeknights at 7:57 on CNN News 18.
This is TV18 and you're watching CNBC TV18.
Banking partner IDFC First Bank. Always you first. Advisory partner Dhruva Advisors.
A 6.5 lakh crore rupees salute yesterday, and today the Lal Street added another 4 lakh crore rupees in market capitalization. It's barely been 24 hours since the union budget, and there is no stopping the stock market rally. Over 10 lakh crore rupees added to investor wealth as things stand. But stock markets aside, the finance minister has made it clear that the government will spend and spend and spend to get the economy back on track. The industry has had some time now since the budget to digest the fine print. So does India Inc. believe the budget does enough to support growth? Welcome to CNBC TV18's Budget Townhall. I'm Shireen Bhan. We will be joined by captains of Indian industry to quiz the key architects of the budget. Joining us on this very special program, Ajay Bhushan Pandey, the Finance Secretary. Also with us, Tarun Bajaj, the Secretary, Economic Affairs. And quizzing them will be V. Vaidyanathan, MD and CEO of IDFC First Bank, Dinesh Kanabar, the CEO of Dhruva Advisors, Sanjeev Bajaj, CMD of Bajaj Finserv, Dr. H. Sudarshan Balal, nephrologist and chairman of Manipal Hospitals, Chandrajit Banerjee, Director General at CII, Ameera Shah, Managing Director of Metropolis Healthcare, and also with us is the big bull of the Lal Street, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. Ameera, gentlemen, many thanks for joining us, Mr. Bajaj and Mr. Pandey. I know it's been a long innings for you. I'm going to request you to be patient with us and take on a little more of your time and attend to some of the questions that industry has here. Well, if Sanjeev Bajaj.
Let me just start by saying that as industry, we welcome this budget. We know the big pressures it had placed on the Ministry of Finance and the way the ministry has come out with a balanced budget meeting the requirements of so many people in society and industry. We compliment them for a very progressive and practical budget that will go a long way to infuse confidence. We actually, from industry's point of view and from CII's point of view, we had presented to the government what we thought should be a 3-year glide path towards coming back to better fiscal management, and what we see instead is a 5-year glide path. So my first question would be, what confidence does do the officials of the finance ministry have to ensure that a 5-year period is a sufficient period for us to come back to fiscal prudence, and that both on the growth side as well as on the collection side, we will meet progressively over this period of time the different interim steps in the fiscal deficit?
See, the estimate that we have given, both on the expenditure side as well as on the revenue side, they are very realistic. So far as the current year is concerned, we have already passed the 10 months. 10 months we have a fairly good idea of how much we have collected and how much we have spent. Now similarly for the next 2 months, how much we are going to collect, and then also how much we are going to spend. So therefore, what we have tried to do in this budget is that we have transparently put the revenue side as well as the expenditure side, and then from there this fiscal deficit, the number, that 9.5 that has come in. Now so far the next year is concerned, the next year, if you see our growth estimate on a nominal terms, it is somewhere between 14 and 15%. And what we have done, going by the current trend of the tax revenue collection as well as the non-tax revenue collection is concerned, in both front, we have made a realistic estimate. The growth figure, nominal growth, and on that, the tax buoyancy that we have assumed is a realistic tax buoyancy estimate, that is about 1.15%. So total tax growth is considered to be 16.7%, 16.8% in that range. And going by the current tax trend, if you see, particularly let's say in the GST, in the indirect taxes, during the last 3-4 months, what the kind of the results that we have got, and also in the direct tax, about the GST figures, all of you, the people may be aware that for the last 2-3 months, we have given the collection of 1,20,000, 1,15,000, and then around 5,000, 6,000 in that range. On the direct tax collection side, by the end of January, we are now down as compared to last year, only by gross tax collection is down only by 6.7%. And this gap is going to further narrow. So what has happened is that because of this collection efficiency, the improvement is not only seen in the indirect side, but also on the direct side. So the next year, if we have estimated 16.7% growth on the basis of a nominal growth of between 14 and 15%, this is realistic. Now, so far as the expenditure side is concerned, next year we have estimated that our expenditure, higher expenditure on infrastructure, health and the other areas, it will be above 34 lakhs. So with the tax collection and as well as the non-tax collection, the disinvestment that we have shown the plan, based on that, the revenue side is going to be quite realistic, and therefore the glide path, the next year 6.8%, and then going forward, we need to bring it to the a certain reasonable level. So I think this glide path is also realistic.
So the last bit of the part A of the speech of the finance minister clearly brought out all these aspects, and one of the aspects that we brought out was that in 25-26 we would try to come to a fiscal deficit which would be lower than 4.5%. So we are at 6.8% in 21-22. By 25-26, after a gap of three years, we reach a figure of 4.5. I think one of the questions that Sanjeev had asked was whether this glide path was achievable. I think it is very much achievable, and we have actually been very truthful while coming out with our numbers, and we have not tried to overestimate or to bow before the people who have been saying that we should not move away from the 3% fiscal deficit target. The point about the FRBM Act being amended, I think she's also come upfront and made that statement that we'll amend the FRBM Act. At this point of time, I would not like to say more than this aspect, that we will amend the FRBM Act, whether we keep a flexible target, we keep a fixed target, what target we'll keep, but it will be in the range of what she has indicated for 25-26, which is the last year of the recommendation of the Finance Commission.
Okay. By when do we expect the government to move on the FRBM amendment, sir?
So we would need to study. It is not only the target that has to be set in, there are some other issues also that would need to be looked into. So I think we can hope that in the monsoon session we should be back to the Parliament.
Okay, monsoon session back to the Parliament with the amendment to the FRBM Act. Mr. Vaidyanathan, go ahead with your question for either the Finance Secretary or the Economic Affairs Secretary.
No, to both of them, actually. First of all, congratulations on a very bold budget. My just opening question to set the tone for the whole event, I want to ask you one question. Last few years, of course, things have been very bold. GST was a bold reform, and many other infrastructure developments over the last few years was bold. But this one, it hits it out of the park on boldness. I mean, agricultural reform about 2 months ago. This one talking privatization of public sector banks, general insurance, never heard of. What really, can you tell us an inside stuff about what really brought this sort of a boldness out of the government to do this? It has just taken it to another level altogether.
Who wants to take that first? Mr. Bajaj, would you like to take a shot at that? Give us the backstory of how you decided to finally bite the bullet on many of these ideas which have been on the wish list for long, but finally being taken forward in Budget 2021.
I have seen the insurance sector a bit. I think this discussion has been going on for some time, and it fructified at the time of the budget. Even the presentations that were made to the Prime Minister during the pandemic also had these options that were put forward to him. And I would say that it is a very bold political step taken by the government. The Prime Minister and the Finance Minister together decided that they would now like to go to the market and mention that they would like the insurance companies as well as the public sector banks to be privatized.
Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, Mr. Bajaj and Mr. Pandey, I was just having a conversation with Rakesh Jhunjhunwala before we started the budget town hall, and he was very clear that this is a political message that the budget sends out. Rakesh, go ahead. The secretary is listening in.
So the first question, sir, I have is that why have you been so pessimistic in the estimation of tax collection? Sir, I think your tax collection in the current year are going to be at least 1 lakh crore more than your estimates, and at least 1 to 1.5 lakh crores more next year, sir. Because the direct tax collection is only 6% down now, and with the kind of profits companies are having, the last installment is going to be a real bumper installment. Last installment advance tax. Sir, and second thing is that you have announced such bold measures, for which I congratulate you and the entire bureaucracy and the government, especially the Prime Minister. But sir, have we laid down a path or a date by which we are going to do all this?
Okay, Rakesh, let me put those questions to the secretaries. Mr. Pandey, let me get you to respond to the first question that's coming from Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, and then Mr. Bajaj, I'll come to you on the timelines and the execution roadmap for some of the reform decisions that have been announced in the budget. Mr. Pandey, first you, sir.
When we started this budget exercise, this exercise gets started, way back in the month of November. So, if you have to see the November, December, the kind of situation that we were in, even in January, this corona, then, the new variety of corona, the whole world getting impacted. In such situation, what you have to come up with some kind of a realistic estimate, because in the past we have there have been talks saying that the estimates that the Revenue Department gives, the government gives, they are unrealistic. A lot of things are, and this throws the government finances, not only of the union government, also the state governments into a very, very difficult situation. So we needed to come out with a certain realistic figure.
You can say that we have been slightly conservative, but I can say that if we generate more money, we will spend more on infrastructure. So our ambition to spend more on infrastructure to create durable assets which have multiplier effect remains there. On the timelines, the second part of your question, I would, before I answer that question, I would like to tell Mr. Jhunjhunwala and to all of you to keep reminding us of the question that you have asked every 15 days, every month. We would like to deliver, and we would deliver on the promises that we have made this time. But I think it's the job of the media also to keep pushing us to that direction, and I'm sure you'll keep doing that. Coming to the figures that we have taken for this year, we have just taken 1,75,000 crores. And let me say that there's a pipeline already on. The pipeline has some major disinvestments, which is the BPCL, Concor, Air India, BML, Pawan Hans, and a few more. And I have not mentioned LIC and IDBI, which also should see the light of the day within the current year. So even if we do that, maybe we will exceed 1,75,000, not talking about the two public sector banks and the insurance company. The whole idea now is that on the asset monetization as well as strategic disinvestment, we want a pipeline ready. So let the water keep flowing through this pipe. It should not happen that it comes for an hour and then for 12 hours there's no water. So let it happen. If something comes up in the month of March 21 or March 22, it's fine. If something even comes up in June 22, that is also good.
Mr. Bajaj, just a quick follow-up on IDBI Bank. Sir, what is the process going to be? Will you invite EOIs for IDBI Bank as well?
Yes, IDBI Bank is now for strategic disinvestment, I think. I think LIC and Government of India maybe together would go for it. It is not giving up the Government of India shares on the stock market. It is not that. It's basically the Government of India share would be given up, and I'm sure LIC would also join.
Correct.
Mankind's first luxury, chocolate. Today, we unleash its dark side. No mercy to the sun-ripened cocoa beans. No compassion in extracting pure chocolate. Generously embracing fruits, nuts, coffee, and even tea. This is the alchemy of dark chocolate. Amul dark chocolates. Dark, a little more delicious.
All new Safari, test drive and booking open. Delivery start 22nd February. Reclaim your life.
Beautiful.
Exactly.
Mehendi. This is thoughtful.
Hindware Italian collection.
Let's get menstruation hygiene management in the school curriculum for a better future. Please log on to www.periodofpride.com or give a missed call on 9999671283.
Whisper presents Period of Pride, Ek Swachh Soch, an initiative by Network 18.
India's most iconic market show, Reloaded. With cutting-edge market analysis that goes deep and cuts through the noise. To bring you what's trending, what's buzzing, and where the opportunities are. With the most experienced team in the business. Bazaar Morning Call. Every weekday on CNBC TV18 and CNBCTV18.com. An interactive show for aspiring investors. Learn from the masters of the markets with live masterclasses.
One should not get carried away too much by the up move in the market, and one should make sure that they are invested in quality companies.
Value investing insights.
If biggest pandemic in a century doesn't give you better prices, imagine how futile timing the market is.
And time-tested strategies to identify profitable stocks and businesses.
The only mantra is to figure out which are the investable opportunities where risk, reward and asymmetric payoff possibilities are on your side.
A one-of-a-kind investment-ready regular. CNBC TV18 Investment Guide.
Health specialists on the panel, Dr. Balal and Amira Shah, are here with us. Since health was the other focus area that the government has decided to prioritize in Budget 2021. Amira, let me start by asking you to post your question as well as your comments.
Thank you, Shireen. I think my question is, firstly, thank you so much for a fair budget. I think there's definitely a higher allocation given to healthcare, which is truly welcome, I think, by the whole country and all the citizens. As we all know, this is an investment that we need to be making for many, many years to come. I had two questions. Number one, private sector has obviously played an enormous role in this last year, in 2021, not only from a vaccine, from a diagnostics, from hospitals, from pharma, from every angle. And as we know, private industry in healthcare actually contributes almost 70% of the services in India today compared to the public sector. I think private industry would have truly welcomed just some recognition or some impetus to continue to grow and show this commitment towards all our citizens into the next year as well. It could have been by very small movements of, for example, GST, for example, all healthcare providers, we'd have the input cost, but we don't charge anything to customers or to patients. This just adds an additional cost in healthcare, and it's something which can't be collected back. Could the government do certain impetuses to help private healthcare continue this commitment into the future?
Again, the tinkering with this GST tax rates, I think, we have to, avoid this. And, in this meeting itself, you have seen that on one hand, we are talking about the stability in the tax rate. For example, in the health sector, what we have done is that we have provided a tax exemption so far as the delivery of the services are concerned. Now, but then I see no connection as such as to, why, the GST rates on the inputs which are purchased by the health provider, that should be exempted, because that will be further distortionary. So I think, the businesses have to be organized in that manner.
So my question is, are we reading it wrong that this is coming out of this belief which emerged out of the fortuitous circumstances in the most grim atmosphere of COVID, which means the kick start of the formal sector, the reforms, and so on. And based on that, the belief that even if with 9.5%, the rupee did not fall, interest rate didn't go over, economy started working on itself, which means this government has discovered and determined that our economic policies make sense. They may take few years, a few quarters here and there, and that demand, democracy, and demographics have real meaning. And that is why all this fiscal deficit, etc., have limited meaning in the context of national aspirations. And that's what you have gone for with higher capital expenditure, higher budget deficit, and pushing the budget deficit limit to all the way to 4.5% in 26. It's a staggering amount of deficit room that you've created for yourself. But are we getting carried away? That's my first question. Second question again is the euphoria in the market is not as much for earnings as for this attitude. And the second was real commitment to ease of doing business. Some of the small changes that have been announced, I do not know whether to call them small, is the change as in advance tax for dividend earners. The transparency of bringing on the FCI debt and maybe NI debt and other debts over a period of time. Or correction of custom duty, the distortions that may have been a result of various factors, whether lobbying, pressures, whatever, etc. But converting it's a massive exercise that the government has announced. And which is what gives the confidence that the government is now not doing just lip service, but is committed to creating ease of doing business. And second, as I said, the self-belief of, national economics.
Okay, Mr. Bajaj, let me get you to start by responding to the point. You've already addressed that at the start of the program, but for Mr. Bhansali's benefit, he wants to know if we might have gotten carried away a bit on the higher side with the kind of fiscal deficit that you worked in.
I am not sure, but I think Mr. Bhansali first answered this query before he raised that query, so I have nothing much to add to what he actually said, that the fiscal deficit that has gone up this year is also on account of the pressures that we had on the revenue figures and also the need for doing excess expenditure for the vulnerable section and for health infrastructure. For the next year, we are actually going for a greater impetus on infrastructure spend and other spend which would lead to multiplier effects. So I don't think so. And you very rightly said that the markets have been very calm and have taken this stance of the government and the intention which has come out in the budget as a real one.
Final question to the both of you. And I'll start by asking you, Mr. Pandey, what was the hardest part of putting this budget together?
No, I think the direction was very clear, in the sense the direction in which we wanted to go. And particularly if you see the last 10 months, we came out with the series of intervention through the various packages, or each package itself could be termed as a mini budget. So I think, we and a lot of preparation had gone into the making of this budget. And we wanted this budget to be something, not only an incremental budget, but, it's, giving a completely a new direction. I would say, it kind of a quantum leap kind of a budget, reform budget, and that is what exactly, what we were working for the last 6-7 months. And finally, this is not something which could be done only in, let us say, in 1 or 2 months. This is exactly, many of these things which you have seen in the budget. It may look, something which, very, very simple, but a lot of groundwork has gone into this. And for each component, and very, very carefully thought, be it on the financial sector side, or the infrastructure, or be it on the the taxation side, disinvestment side. So each point was very, very thoroughly debated within the ministry, with the other stakeholders, other ministries, and then finally we could come out with this kind of a budget.
Well, Mr. Bajaj, the finance minister had promised a budget like never before. How much pressure did that put on you and the budget team?
Okay, let me share a secret which I don't know whether I should be sharing that with all of you or not. The maximum time that I spent with my family was during the last few days of making the budget. And my family actually was doubting whether I was actually involved in making the budget at all or not. So the kind of things that Dr. Pandey has mentioned, that the preparation was going on for a long time and we didn't have the pressure at the last moment. And so my personal staff on the last day was very surprised when I came in the afternoon and left in 2 hours' time, and they were quite amazed as to whether nothing was supposed to be done that day. So it was a good experience overall.
That's an interesting backstory. Thank you very much, Mr. Bajaj, as well as Mr. Pandey.
Banking partner, IDFC First Bank. Always you first. Advisory partner, Dhruva Advisors.
When you are the one setting the standards, your only competition is you. Altroz iTurbo with IRA, forever the gold standard.
A well-informed investor builds a well-planned financial future. Join us to bust some myths and get insights on safe trading in the commodity market.
MCX IPF presents Commodities Trade, only on CNBC TV 18.
You finance है, you glance है, lock screen पे business tips, glance. आपके फोन में है क्या?
Is it the Kisan or is it Bharat ka nuksan that is the plan? That's the question. On the 5th of August 2019, the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A ushered in a new era. Is it a simple case of putting politics, your party politics, above the nation's pride?
The Right Stand, weeknights at 7:57 on CNN News 18.
Entrepreneurship is about seeing opportunities that others do not see. I would tell entrepreneurs to go ahead and explore.
And an economic shakedown is usually when you see the strong emerge, deal with it not the way you wish it was, but the way it is, and then position for the future.
We've always chased value. We've never chased valuation, and that's what this show is about.
India's most credible thought leadership platform and the world's longest running show on startups and entrepreneurship. Young Turks. Tune in, scale up, stand out at these times. An interactive show for aspiring investors. Learn from the masters of the markets with live masterclasses.
One should not get carried away too much by the up move in the market, and one should make sure that they are invested in quality companies.
Value investing insights.
If biggest pandemic in a century doesn't give you better prices, imagine how futile timing the market is.
And time-tested strategies to identify profitable stocks and businesses.
The only mantra is to figure out which are the investable opportunities where risk, reward and asymmetric payoff possibilities are on your side.
A one-of-a-kind investment-ready regular. CNBC TV 18 Investment Guide.
Are you somewhere worried that some vested interests are sort of guiding the farmers on this? How do you respond to what the NC and the PDP are saying? You're using corruption as a red herring to divert from the real issue, which is abrogation of Article 370. The right to choose your own partner is a fundamental right. How will this new law stand the test of courts?
Rostax, weeknights at 8:57 on CNN News 18. News that impacts us.
Is that really how the vaccination processes work, that you have to sign a consent form?
Voices that matter.
Talking is not happening, whereas protests are continuing even as talking is happening.
Issues that slip in the noise.
MSP जारी रहेगी, ये सरकार का संकल्प है और इसलिए जब वो कहेंगे तो लिखित में देने में कोई दिक्कत नहीं है.
We go where the news is. News epicenter at these times on CNN News 18.
You've presented this budget in the backdrop of a once in a
century pandemic. What were you really thinking about when you were framing this budget?
If I don't spend now, I will only be postponing the growth. And I certainly didn't want to fund this whole operation through taxation.
Nirmala ji, there is a little bit of confusion around the agri-infra cess.
The end